Hey there, welcome to the Insight Corner. My name is Nikon, and today I'm here to talk to you about listening. There's a lot of content out there about listening to others, but today is about listening to yourself. So we're just going to focus on ourselves for today, and I'm going to make a whole other video about listening to others. So first of all, why are we talking about listening to ourselves? Because I think it's one of the most powerful and underused resources we have available. Because what happens when you listen to yourself? To me, you tap into the thing I like to call your innate wisdom, your inner genius. Some people call heart knowings, or some people just call intuition. And to me, that's one of your most powerful, almost spiritual intelligence you have within you. And oftentimes we don't use it, or we think of it like it's either you use your tactical, analytical brain, or you use your heart. And I'm here to say that you can use both. Like, I think in terms of like technical things that you need to remember or know, I think your analytical brain is really, really helpful. And when it comes to more intuitiveness, I think listening to your heart is incredibly useful. And the benefits of learning to tap into your heart wisdom or your innate genius and listen to yourself is you get to cut through the bullshit. When things get complicated or you're dealing with a situation that looks fuzzy and you just need some insight just to cut right through it, and you tap into your gut check and your heart knowings, it's really helpful. Or especially when you feel really alone, if you're a solopreneur, you run a business, or you're a leader and you feel really alone and you don't know who to go to, is you can really slow down and tap into yourself. And for me, it's incredibly useful. And also, to me, it's also a way of allowing yourself to be guided by your heart and by your inner wisdom. And it's an incredible thing when you let it happen. And so for me, if I may share, I think growing up, I used to overthink a lot of things. I used to be really good at analyzing things and finding the pros and cons, and if it went right, I would pat myself on the back. That was a good analytical ability. And if it went wrong, I would I need to get better analyzing. What I didn't realize that how much time I spent doing that, and how much time in doing that it took me out of the game, because I was more worried about my thinking than I was being present with whatever I was doing, whether it was playing martial arts, taekwondo, or sports, or relationships. And I learned that when I learned to really listen to my wisdom and my heart, life became so much more simpler. It felt more guided. Even when I wanted to reach for a goal and I didn't know how to get there, I knew I could trust my heart and my inner wisdom just to show me the next steps. And that's available for you too. What I know is what you know. I'm just helping you to remember or remind you. And I think the best part of it is, for me, I found, is feeling that you're never alone. And I know sometimes being in the world, it can often feel like that, right? Like no one understands you or acknowledges you, but to have this deeper intelligence within you that's always with you and always guiding you, for me, it was a big relief to know that the whole world was not on my shoulders. And I want to share with you how to listen to yourself so you can tap into that. So I think when people think about listening to themselves, they hear all the busyness in their heads and the noise and like the clutter and the insecurity, and that's not what you listen to. But it's helpful. The first step is actually to notice that that's there. And to me, it's almost like you swipe left, or if you're not on that game, it's you just disregard it, or you disassociate yourself with that busyness, and you let yourself settle. And it's almost like you're listening for quiet within yourself. You go to quiet first, and you go back to listening. And what you're listening for is actually a feeling, right? Like most of us think, when I listen to myself, I'm going to listen for information. But what actually, you're listening for a quiet feeling within yourself. It feels very quiet and settled and still. And that's where the guidance will come from. And that's where the right moment, right time, right place information will come from. And it takes some getting used to, especially if you're used to listening to the noise. It's helpful just to settle down and just listen for a quiet feeling, and trust that feeling that it will guide you for the next steps with whatever you're dealing with. And I promise you, it will support you with whatever you're doing. And when I started doing this, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this all the time. And what I learned is that sometimes it takes time. Like when I listen for an answer within myself and nothing comes, it just means the answer isn't ready yet. It doesn't mean I'm not listening good enough. And it's helpful to discern between this and busy thinking listen. So if you're listening to like your insecurities or your doubts or your fears, the thinking feels almost urgent. Like you got to do something really quickly, or it feels doubtful, it feels heavy. That's how you know you've tuned into the wrong radio station. So it's really about slowing down and listening within yourself. I'll give you an example. I think athletes are really good at this, especially high performance athletes who do things like combat or actually any type of sport, where they're no longer listening to their analytical brain, but they're operating more on a feeling, and everything's just very intuitive. Like that was what it was like for me as a Taekwondo player. Sometimes I just knew what to do, and I just knew what to do without needing to think about it. In fact, I'd love to give that question to you. When in your life have you just known what to do next? It wasn't logical, it wasn't analytical, you just knew. In your heart of hearts, you just knew deep inside your bones that this was the next step, or you had to go left or right, or it was a decision. What was that like for you? I'd love for you to put it in the comments below. And when you start to get a feel for listening to yourself, it's forever yours. It's like uncovering the best resource in the universe that's always, always been with you. And especially helpful when things get tough, or they look complicated, to know that that knowing and that feeling is very much within you always. And let's talk about what gets in the way of that. Like what gets in the way of you listening to yourself. I think our own insecurities get in the way of that, and our fears or doubts, is that they look so scary to us. These things that are crossing our consciousness, they look like they need our attention now. And that's not true. It doesn't need our attention now. What it's really telling us is that we have some funny thinking going on in front of our consciousness, and it's really a sign to slow down and take a step back and listen again to yourself. And I think another thing that gets in the way of listening to yourself is thinking that you already know, like knowing like you've already made up your mind about what you're going to hear. I think that kind of almost unconscious prejudice keeps you from hearing fresh. What I mean by hearing fresh is hearing something new. I've already made up my mind about this situation. I've already made up my mind about what this person is like or is not like. Therefore, I've shut off my listening. So I really need to go back to hearing fresh again. Or sometimes you've even made up your mind about what you're like. No, I'm just like this. I always do this. I always do that. Like that's just not giving yourself the full opportunity to come back and listen again. And I think it's really helpful to notice that. I used to think that when I was playing Taekwondo and I wasn't performing at the level I wanted to, and I thought my problem was confidence, so I made it up that I wasn't confident, so I needed to work on my confidence. And I would do all these exercises and visualizations and affirmations, and none of them worked. And what I realized one day when I listened again, I was like, well, maybe it's okay not to be confident all the time. And when I listened to that, it felt true. I was like, yeah, it's okay to not always feel confident. And I went back to enjoying the game of Taekwondo. I went back to enjoying the sport. And what happened was my performance went through the roof, and I started winning, and I started playing well, and I realized, oh wow, if I had just listened to myself, I would have solved this a lot faster. And I think that's what's really on offer here, is just noticing how you get in your own way of listening. And also, I think if you're in a really low state of mind, if you're upset, if you're angry or you're frustrated, like that's really a sign not to listen to yourself, because there's so much busy thinking that's taking up so much of your attention. And now that if you're in that space, what you really need to be listening to is, what you really need to do is to go back to quiet and find that quiet space within you, and then listen to yourself. Yeah. So I hope this was helpful. So recap, listen for a quiet feeling. Really to try and discern between, are you listening to the busyness, the insecurity, the doubt, or are you listening to the quiet feeling? Because the quiet feeling is all you need to guide you to the next steps that will take you as far and as high as you want to go. And that's what it's really about. I think Dr. Jack Pransky, in an interview with Michael Neal, said it's like listening to the rain. Listen to yourself like listening to the rain with nothing on your mind and just see what comes up. And I'd love for you to share your experiences in the comments of this as well. So lastly, I'd love for you to like, share, and subscribe. I will make another video about listening to other people. And I really hope this was useful to you. I think learning to listen to yourself, or for me, learning to listen to myself has been an incredibly valuable gift in helping me to navigate life, work, relationships, finance. It's just been so helpful to know that at any given moment, I can slow down, I can tap into my inner knowing, and I can really trust what I hear to guide me to the next steps. And I wish that for you too. All right, we will speak again soon. Have a wonderful day. All right, bye.